with Garima for over 2 years now, I think, and helping her out with the Devops Summit for the third time. And really happy to join in on some of these events. My background is electrical engineer, then into IT project management, development, and operations. So seen IT from a few different perspectives, and I love what these crowd chats are bringing to my awareness of what I've been through and what I'm going to be going through. So I'm going to pass on to Sriram.
Sure. Hey, Will. Hey, Garima. Hey, all. Thanks for inviting me for this chat. A quick introduction about me. I'm Sriram. I'm one of the DevOps architects for Vmware Corporation. I take care of consulting and solutioning within the area of DevOps and SRE for our clients, working with leading banks and other organizations in institutionalizing their DevOps and the SRE processes and transformation and so on. So that's a quick introduction about me. Good to be participating again in this Scout chat. It has been a series of discussions that we have been having in 2021, and this is again one of the key topic that I feel that would change how industries are going to adapt DevOps in the future. So yeah, we're very eager to participate in this chat. Thank you.
Thank you. Gautam, you can go next.
Gautam Palapa. I'm a global CTO at Vmware. In my previous roles, I used to lead engineering and operations for large enterprises, drive digital transformation successfully, introduce more of a agility, lean, and DevOps mindset within the organizations and transform them. Now, I partner with a number of Fortune 500 companies to help them on their journey and do pretty much the same thing. So very excited to be here on this chat. So I'll probably pass it on to Maciek.
Yeah, sure do. Maciek here from Global Entrepreneurs. We do many things, like, for example, manufacturing prototypes, but also IT services, like maintenance. I don't know what else to say. Let's get rolling with this chat.
Excellent. And I think the chat has started. William, can you put up the first question? Okay, and
it's working better than before.
I'm a little bit lost on my pages, so I'm going to take a minute. If you have the question available, maybe you can post it. I'm just searching through my mails again. Sorry about that.
No worries. Everybody has those questions, by the way. I wanted to get this discussion started. So Sriram, if you have those questions handy, just try to post it on the crowd chat. I want to introduce the topic itself, because this topic has been around since the beginning of the year. A lot of traction has been built up on business agility with DevOps, and specifically business agility, I would say. And this is the first time actually we are talking about business agility with DevOps. So I would like to get this going. And if you see the right-hand side of the slide, it is the Mentimeter challenge, which we created. We're creating a word cloud on this topic. So I see a lot of words which are familiar: automation, value, creativity, systematic flow, improvement. And I think all this would be building up the perspective for the business agility for DevOps, right? Ways to connect, just some prerequisites. If you want to connect with us, there is a meetup chapter, Ottawa DevOps collaboration and coaching. We also have other chapters, Toronto and Edmonton, if you're interested to join us there. Also, we host the Devops Summit, which happens November 8th and 9th. So we welcome you all to join us there and build this perspective along with us. And in case you are interested more to know about us, what we do, we have our LinkedIn collaterals as well. So I'll not take much of your time. I would like the discussion to have a perspective. So what we are doing here today is we are trying to crowdsource, ideate, and validate some of the ideas which we have for difficult questions like business agility. And I still feel that business agility has been a difficult question for all of us, at least for a decade now. So let's crowdsource this difficult question. What will happen after this crowd chat? We will have some collaterals and create a white paper out of the discussion which we are having today. So let's see how this gets built up, and we are setting the pace for the DevOps practices for the next generation. At least that's what is happening in my mind. I'm trying to multitask here. I'm trying to also look at the crowd chat. So William, if you can also see and steer that conversation in the crowd chat, that would be great. But just to kind of ensure that we build the dialogue from where we understand the pain points are coming, the grassroots journey of why business agility has been a hot topic since 2021, beginning of 20, around the topics of Agile, DevOps, and the companies which has come to us for some discussions. They actually have steered this conversation that companies have implemented Agile and DevOps last year, but half of the projects are still delayed or failing. So there is no unified way of assessing, discovering, analyzing, measuring value. And the business is changing faster than the features which we can develop. IT has never been able to catch up. So this is something which we need to have a reflection. These are like grassroots pain points of some of the corporate.
Did we lose her?
What happened? Yes.
I think we lost her.
Well, she should be back in a moment, I guess.
Yeah.
So the first question is?
The first question is, what do you refer to as business agility, and how is it different from Agile?
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to go and start that conversation?
Well, thank you for posting that, Dr. G. And I like your input about the ability of an organization to use agile methodologies for adapting quickly to market change. I find it's good. For me, it also, visibility is a big factor here. Without the visibility, it's very difficult to be agile. So for me, it's a prerequisite to be quite visible in your market requirements, market research, but also in your business processes and the status of your operations.
Right. And can you guys hear me now? I lost you for a moment.
Yeah, we hear you again.
We were totally lost.
No worries, but I think the conversation continued, and I'm grateful that we can continue this discussion without me. I have now advanced the slide with some of the key questions which we want to explore through this crowd chat today. And the first question as we speak is, what do you refer to business agility and how is it different from Agile? I mean, let's just start to picking up this conversation from what do we understand by business agility? Is it agile or something else? I mean, I have been researching this topic a little bit, and I wanted to get this discussion going. So Gautam, let's start with you because I believe that you have a lot of experience working with large enterprises. How do you see business agility in the context of, what is the conversation which we are having right now? How is it different from Agile? And
this is a really apt question to ask, especially now, right? A lot of people use the word Agile, but they use the lowercase a rather than the capital A. And for me, when people start using those words, what I sense is they're actually talking about team agility or technical agility, which is more of the mechanism of delivering working products and software to the customer, right? The way of working, the frameworks, all those things. Business agility, on the other hand, which is more on the capital A in my mind, is around business outcomes. It's around making sure that you're using agile practices and methodologies as market differentiator. You're being able to adapt to the market quickly and to all the changes as soon as possible. You're catering to the customer needs, and they've changed a lot, especially in 2020. The customer needs completely changed because we moved into a contactless and a digital world, right? So the ability to use agile principles and thought processes to respond rapidly and flexibly in such a dynamic environment, and then focusing on the value and using all these various mechanisms to make sure that you are reducing the friction of moving value from the ideation phase all the way to the implementation phase is, in my mind, the true crux of business agility in an enterprise setting. What do you guys think?
Yes, and I think this is excellent. I wanted to continue this conversation with Shantanu. I see Shantanu is on the call. We will get to other questions, but Shantanu, I wanted to get your perspectives as well on this topic.
Thanks, Garima, and hi everyone. This is a very interesting topic, Garima. You know, I was just going through a lot of reading articles on exactly how this is getting adapted in the market. So I'll just second what Gautam said. You know, when we talk about the business agility, it's more about how the companies are gearing up to adapt to the changes which either intentionally or not intentionally were brought to them. But for every organization that we talk about, they have a superior responsibility to bring up their quality, which basically defines them. So when we talk about the quality, if that's uncompromisable for the companies, and that too they will have to map business driving factors, boosters. So how exactly are they going to maintain that decorum with the kind of advancements we are having in technology and the new processes coming in place? It's very difficult for any established organization to quickly adapt to it without seeing it through. So if they are not able to see through all the next gen ops that we say about, or all the advanced technology enablements we see about, and how exactly are they enabling them, and in any case, if that's not enabling them to get exactly the kind of quality, if not better, but at least the benchmark that they have defined, this is gonna go very wrong. So how do they map what exactly they need and what they have been delivering so far with this whole practice in place is something a very difficult challenge for all the business agility leaders. So that's a very wide topic to discuss, but to me it's something which every company is struggling now. How can they map the advancement of technologies with the pace that it needs to be mapped to?
So yes, and I think this is an excellent point because I was actually looking at some research work, some conference discussions around this topic before this crowd chat, and I came across a very good discussion which Phil had brought up in the Business Agility Conference, where he talks about, business agility is more about strategy, not about prioritization. So I would like to get this reflection from Sriram. Do you believe that, when we are having this discussion about business agility, it's somewhere lying in the domain and the bubble which we have kind of created from a strategy perspective, and it's still in silos, and we are not able to bring it together from a grounds up perspective? Is that something which is bringing this whole thing together in terms of business agility?
Yes, Graham, I think so. Yes, I think that's a lot of organizations are also trying to change the way how they interact with the business, or vice versa. Right? In terms of the concept of DevOps, where if it started itself, right? It started with saying that let's break the silos between teams, right? And within the technology teams itself, when there was a silo earlier, there's no question about the business and the technology team, right? The silo used to be, they used to work in a separate island in for most of the cases. And that's why I feel the organizations have started looking into breaking that, right? Bring a kind of an inclusiveness, right? That would help in the information flow between, the business teams and the technology teams. I normally fancy this word with the kind of biz DevOps, right? That's how I used to talk to some of my clients. So that also helps them bringing saying that look, you are also part of the same organization that your technology team is going to deliver, and with the way things have been changing, right? Whatever the change that has been delivered by the IT team or the technology team has to be validated and evaluated by the business team, right? That's where the organization will be able to realize the value of or the delivery that they make. So to make all those things, I think it is I'll not say it's a complete strategic one, right? I would lean towards a bit of prioritization because what it all the business sees is the value it's finally delivered to the customer. So in that way, I would look more from the prioritization perspective than the strategic perspective.
Excellent. And I think this is the kind of discussion we want to have in this conversation in this 1 hour. I would, before going forward, like to check with William, how is the crowd chat going? Do you see a possibility of posting some more questions? And what are the reflections coming in?
Crowd chat is going great. We have some good input. Mark Peters has made a few comments on this question. Defining agility, ability to respond to change. He's questioning what the end result could be. It's if it's not going to destroy the company, maybe he's looking at risks there. And also ask you if should agility ever be complete? He feels it's an ongoing process requiring constant effort. I agree with that as well. Do we have any comments on Mark Peters' statements there, or should we move on to the second question?
Let's move on to the second question, because I think it's aligning to the way we have been seeing the business agility aspect developing. It's also somehow kind of interesting to see, how risk averse is the business, and, how should we ensure that business is more steered towards experimentation, fail fast. And making mistakes is not considered to be a taboo. So these are things which I think is directly related to what Mark has said. But let's move on to the next question, William. So I will come back to you for watching the crowd chat as well as your reflections. But Gautam and Sriram and Shantanu, if you want to put your comments in the crowd chat, that would be great, because then we have the input for the white paper. Now, I would also move this discussion a little bit forward around business agility and where DevOps can support it. So some of the research I have done through the topic, I found out some aspects of how DevOps could support it possibly, but I'll have to come back to you guys who are the experts. So I'll check with Siddharth now, because I think he's the right person to help us direct in for this question. So what do you think, Siddharth, how business agility can be supported by DevOps, and what are the possibilities we have here?
I would like to start with something which was having a discussions earlier. So the difference between agile and agility is of something like you're doing agile and being agile. Now, you can do agile, but to be agile is where this agility concept comes in. And why it is needed, and it is a need of the hour of the business agility, is because the organization is not run by the ops team. It is not run only by the dev team. It is run by the sales team. It is run by the HR team. It is run by the marketing team, and it is run by other infra teams as well. And when we talk about business agility, it means you should be agile in the other departments as well within the organization. And that is where the business agility comes in. So where the DevOps can help and support it, first and foremost is, can we see the flow of value right from on the left where the idea generates to the left to the right hand side where the value is actually realized. So idea generates right from where you start having conversation with customers, and the value generates when the customer realizes that value. And in that whole value chain, we can see it, visualize it. I think that is one key thing where DevOps can help in support the business agility piece. Leave aside tools and technologies, leave aside anything which is regarding technologies. One thing is visualization, and probably value stream mapping or value stream management concepts is where it can help out. That is my view. There could be other views as well, but yes, that is key thing from me.
Thank you, Siddharth, for simplifying this conversation. And I think you have reflected a very good point, which is value. Now, I would come back to some of the panelists here, and I think I would like to get some reflection from Maich. I hope that I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yeah.
That how do you see that we can be more aware about the value? How should we discover this value which we are talking about right now?
Well, either you discover it faster or you will go game over out of the business also fast.
So do you think that we have any tools, techniques through which we can get this discovery of this value faster? Can DevOps help in that process?
Well, if I have them, I'm not sharing them because that's my company secret.
Nice.
You can contact me privately, okay? Well, but saying it in more general level, I would say everyone needs to create their own tools. It's not like, hammer, axe, whatever. You can't really use those common tools to your own context. Well, unless you have something simple, because like someone asked before, is rolling out some frameworks enough? Maybe not. How to map that before, how to even project the outcome? Is it even possible? You can, of course, use some kind of advanced mathematics, run some simulations, etc., etc. That also costs. So hard to tell. I would say that companies tend to evolve naturally, like organically. If someone started at a small company, maybe he or she is like the owner of that company, and they somehow survived. Well, they've gained a lot of knowledge. Like my, let's say, neighbor, she is doing a flower shop for 30 years. Is she agile? I don't know, but she's still in the business, so she definitely knows something about how to do business. Yeah.
Right, and it actually helps us to understand that value discovery is not an easy process, right? So that the challenge begins from there itself. And let's come back to this discussion around business agility and how DevOps can support it. And when Siddharth was actually discussing this, I also picked up some great points which he had, like, it starts from the inception stages where you include customer and discuss with the customer the ideation process. And then it goes through to the right end of the chain where the value is realized. So now when you think about the entire process, I was thinking about 4 pillars, and I will come back to Shantanu on this topic, that in my mind, cross-functional teams has helped us a lot, where I kind of operate, and when I see the problems coming in from a siloed environment, we are able to kind of generate more quick, fast feedback loops when we have cross-functional teams. We also have realized that building a data-driven strategy helps. So basically having feedback in your process and how should you monitor the outcome rather than output would be one of the areas where DevOps can essentially help us understand that. Of course, how fast we deliver is something which we all know is one of the pillars of business agility. And a 4th point, I would also like to highlight the chaos engineering aspect, like, how to reduce the blast radius. So just reflecting on these 4 pillars, I would like to kind of come back, Shantanu, to you for this question, like, how do you see that DevOps practices, the culture of DevOps can support bringing business agility to large, medium enterprises?
That's a very great point, Garima. And that's basically I'll say that's actually the secret sauce. If somebody figures out, and there will not be any correct definition for it. It will always be a debatable, definition to coin in. But I just wanted to highlight one point, which somehow I correlate amongst these two topics. Is number one, businesses love stability. Any business leaders you talk to, they are very happy when things are stable. The moment things start going gaga, that's the problem for them, and that's where they start figuring out where IT is the first thing to blame, that they are not picking up. So every business loves stability, and DevOps, to be quite candid, it is challenging the core of it. It loves agility. So now, and it enables it. So now, as most of the business we speak of, they are operating on markets which are kind of notoriously volatile. So now, with this practice in place, everyone has to figure out their own secret sauce. So now, keeping your pillars in mind, it's more of like with things that enables a DevOps culture, with all the cutting techs and all, deriving value from these enablements is like catching a flying bird. So you don't know how fast it is flying, you don't know what's the size of it. But if I just point out the one problem everybody these days, at least for the zone I am speaking with, is facing, is how exactly do I articulate what is my definition of success in the DevOps adoption I've done. Because for few, it's just a couple of tools, which is kind of giving them the agility they needed. Now they are able to release multiple things on their staging, and that's how they have gained agility in terms of testing what they always wanted to do, the rapid testing field. In terms of for few, it's more of like coining these definitions that yes, we are going into a process of advanced, DevSecOps, or maybe we are adding few more capabilities, which gives us more good market definition that yes, we are doing DevOps in a huge way. So it's all now subtly become more about showing off how better we can do DevOps rather than actually thinking what exactly are they doing. So if you go through all the periodicals and all, they are publishing most of the published articles I see is that they have huge tools, they have huge publications, they have huge setups. But what exactly are they trying to put? Why can't they scale it? Because that's not a model to scale. That's the model to good to read. How exactly is that scalability going to happen for you? So no matter how fast you're trying to adapt with the change in business, DevOps is something you have to think through it. So if you're just focusing more on tools and thinking that this is going to give you the agility that you need to deliver your business values, maybe that's going to work for you for some short sprint, not forever. But it's more of a adopting nature of this whole process of DevOps that we say. So now what I personally say across the discussions that I have is DevOps has become more of a mindset now rather than an enablement. So whatever it had to enable, it had enabled you. It has given you all the tools, it has given you all the integrations, it has given you a lot of philosophies in the market around. Now, how are you seeing this? Now, how are you actually utilizing this to accelerate your generation of values is what you have to think through. So everybody will have a different definition. That's the reason I'll not coin a definition to it, but this is my take.
Yeah, Shantanu, you led us to the next question. And I think before we move on to the next question, William, what is happening at the crowd chat? Can you get some feedback for us from the crowd chat?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Garima. We have quite a bit of good input on this second question, and I think we've talked it through a bit. Mark Peters again, thank you. Accelerated value to customer, and of course, flow, feedback, continuous experimentation, possibly culture automation, lean metrics sharing. He's throwing a lot of keywords out there, which could be in our Mentimeter, I think. Maybe it's worthwhile adding these for our documentation after the fact. Also have some comments from myself, liking Massier's comments about companies developing organically, not just using a few basic tools such as the hammer or the axe. So it is a development process, clearly. It's not something you can start with a big bang, and you need to continue. You cannot achieve agility and say, we've done it, okay, move on to the next topic. It is organic. Would we like to move on to the next question? There, we have a few
Yes.
more to go. We have some good questions lined up.
Yes, please pose the next question. And I see a typo here in the slide, so I'll fix it later. Sorry about that. But
So the next question, what are the first 3 steps towards convergence of DevOps with business agility? And we already have an answer from Massiej. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
That's fine.
It's close enough. Okay, sorry about that. Are those concepts that different? It's a good question back. He says he doesn't know. At some point, concepts permeate and reference each other. Just pick a fancy name and try yourself out on the market. Maybe a little bit pessimistic here on this.
No, not really, because come on, there are like bazillion of different frameworks, methods. I don't know, ITIL, Prince, PMI, like different alphabet soups. Okay, those are good materials, but at one point, if you will just reference each of those, you will see that one concept is just basically copy pasted in every of those. So what does it actually mean? Just pick mix and match whatever works for you. Like, it's not really viable to stick to one philosophy, let's say, because philosophy does not guarantee survival.
I have to agree with you on that, and I think it's. I don't want to be pessimistic about it, but I think if you see a new framework or a new buzzword, it's the focus will be moving. Once we achieve some results in a certain area, we're comfortable with it, and we have some continuity, some stability. There's always the latest question popping up, the latest challenge, issue, problem, and business has to deal with that. We have to deal with it, and I think adapting frameworks to deal with new focal points is really what it's about, and not so much pessimism about or just trying to sell the same thing in a different color.
Well,
so
I
think we are
really
adapting
working.
as we go. There's a lot of progress, and that's what I love about this.
Sure do.
Excellent. I think this is a very good conversation, and I do agree that frameworks and tools and techniques, they are just like some kind of tools in your toolbox. So just pick and choose wisely what you want to use and what fits in your context and your perspective. We'll have to move on with the discussion of convergence of DevOps and business agility. And I want to pick up the discussion where we left with Shantanu, where we were kind of discussing about outcome versus output and how to measure and track progress, that how well we have, been able to adapt and, be agile from a business context. And I would like to bring in Gautam here. From your perspective, Gautam, how have you experienced companies like measuring the wrong things, or measuring something which they are comfortable at, rather than just kind of ensuring that they're measuring the right thing? And what is your advice for these people in the context of business agility, and how can we converge this topic with DevOps?
Yeah, thanks, Garima. So I'll say 2 things. The first thing I actually want to share, there's this thing called Peter's principle, I believe, right? Which says that any leader is promoted to the highest level of incompetence. You need to recognize that when people are leaders and they're trying to plan business agility. A lot of leaders have come from a very waterfall kind of an approach, or they've come from a very hierarchical organization, right? And the world has changed fundamentally for them, and they're pretty insecure and they're scared, and they're trying to find the right framework that can quantify this abstract concept of agility. And so they're struggling a lot. And that's why all these various frameworks are being adopted, or they're trying to confuse a mindset with the mechanism of how to do these things, because they're trying to, in their minds, they want to put it in a box that they can understand and something that can be measured on a spreadsheet. That's the first point that I want everyone to recognize, right? And the next one is, because they want to do things in a familiar way, the concept of vanity metrics and measuring the wrong things starts coming up. So pushing people, and this is where I love DevOps, we have this concept of observability and making sure we have the right telemetry and the right metrics are being measured, right? And we have quick feedback loops to make sure that we know if we're successful or not. And for business agility, we want to turn over to outcomes and what outcomes we're trying to capture rather than what tangible working software is being released or how many users are coming out there. The value, the why, has to tie back to the corporate goals, to the strategic imperatives. So we have this thing called an outcomes cascade where I walk leaders through, okay, you know what your strategic imperatives are. These are your goals for this year and maybe for the next 3 years. How are you going to accomplish this? Or what do you define success as? So when we go through the definition of success, I push them and say, let's make it much more smart goals. Let's try to measure exactly what you define success as. Don't forget about how we're going to, forget about how we're going to capture the data. Let's focus on what success means to you. And then afterwards, we actually gamify it a little bit by asking them to place bets and say, okay, how do you bet for or against meeting this particular outcome? And then we drill down into objectives and how you can actually accomplish these outcomes. And all this comes from a DevOps methodology. I mean, it's the mindset of understanding your value stream, figuring out what truly is valuable to you, and then working through how you can measure this value throughout your organization on your path to production, and then getting those quick feedback loops to find out if you're progressing down the path. That has worked really well, and that's something that I encourage a lot of you all to do. I mean, I've been a business leader myself. I had no clue what I was doing at that point, and I know we're recording, so I mean, I'm perfectly comfortable saying that I was pretty stupid at that. And you learn, you adopt, and you get all these things. But at the end of the day, it's not just stability, Shantanu, as you said. I feel it's also predictability of ROI. That is what business leaders really want. And as long as you can show that, and you can show that through outcomes, you actually will have a very compelling case for DevOps in your organization.
Yeah, thank you, Gautam, for your insights. And I can tell you that you're not alone in this journey where you felt lost and alone. And a lot of people, and I have been constantly advocating this, me being one of the examples that, when people like us who have started their career in like late 90s, early 2000s, we have been pushed with so many productivity challenges, like be it cost efficiency, optimization. That was the highest agenda on all the big, large enterprises. And now when you look back, the challenges which we have today are kind of diverse and changing. And the perspective we get from leaders like you, and to a certain extent, the leaders which have been kind of crafted in the late 90s and early 2000s, is basically struggling. They need support to come out of that box of productivity challenges. And that's where I think DevOps is challenging them. And we at Community of Practice in Canada invite all the leadership contributors to come together and build a community where we can find support for all of us. So this is excellent that we could include this discussion in this chat today. The second aspect, I think, which you reflected, which I am very curious to know about, like cascading outcomes. And how do you build that cascaded structure of outcomes, which can kind of work towards building a larger enterprise-wide business agility? And I will turn back now to Sriram, because I think in the last crowd chat, we had discussed some of experiments which he has created in his organization through gamification, through putting together some kind of outcome in the context of DevOps, and how that brings business agility and converges it with DevOps. I would like Sriram, if you can reflect how your teams are working together and just take that bottoms up approach.
Sure. Sure, Garima. And before getting to that, I think Gautam, some of the points that you shared were really great, right? Uh, and that also brings me to a curiosity, right? For the discussions, at least that I have been conducting, sometimes I feel that for the business teams, measuring itself is a bitter pill for them. What to measure, why to measure, how to measure, and all those things comes at as a bigger question than seeing to where we start measuring to, right? That is something that probably if you can share some of your experience, that would be great. But back to Garima's point in terms of gamification. Again, gamification, like what I personally feel is what it works for the particular team, right? The understanding of the value stream is vital, so that the teams can start looking into what can be measured, what can be gamified. Gamified would always lead to productivity, right? But some of the times there might be some doubts as well, right? Especially when we have teams from different worlds, right? Talking in different jargons. The technology team will be having their own jargons. The business team will be having their own jargons. So to blend them into one single aspect is always a challenge, and that is where some of the gamification that we have done in terms of your DevOps process for the technology, like the CI/CD process, has helped us in showcasing it to the business team, right? To make them understand. Again, back to the point, right? It is a bit of convincing that we need to do to the business team to make them understand why we need to start measuring, right? And that would lead to what to measure and where to measure. So that has been at least my experience on this.
Excellent, Sriram. Thank you very much for those reflections. I would turn back to William on the crowd chat. What are you seeing?
Yes, thank you, Garima. Some good comments. Again, I think we're getting a lot of interaction on every question on our crowd chat. So I encourage you, if you have not contributed on the crowd chat, to join in with your ideas. These are being captured for the white paper. On this question about 3 steps convergence of DevOps, which we've covered quite well, had quite a bit of input. For example, again, I keep going to Mark Peters. He's a very prolific contributor here on this crowd chat. So thank you, Mark. He's quoting a wiki and says, BA is business agility. It refers to rapid, continuous, and systematic evolutionary adaptation and entrepreneurial innovation directed at gaining and maintaining competitive advantage. So that's a mouthful. It does include a lot of the concepts we have been considering here. We have a new question. Where does the demand for flexibility and agility originate? Is it from external stakeholders, management, or employees as well? We have a couple of comments on that. Dr. G, external shareholders require predictability and stable ROI. Management and the workforce really need to embrace agility, lean, and DevOps to drive this value through the organizational consistently. So he's saying it basically comes from all sides and is necessary from all sides. Any comments on this question?
What I think is where this all came across was businesses were losing. For example, Nokia, from being on top to being on bottom, what happened? Why did it lose? Then there were banks. They did a lot of great things and when this recession came in 2008 to the 9, many were lost. Then something happened in US, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, top banks. What happened? Was it just bad loans or something else? So when these top organizations like GE was did any business in which they were not in top 3. That was their thought process when they did business. So any business in which they were not in top 3, they would move out of the business. They lost it. Yahoo lost it. Why these people lost it? Is it because of money or forward thinking? I would say in some way they were not agile in their thought process. They did not have the forward looking. Nokia, for example, did not have forward looking of moving from Symbian to Android. So agility does not only means that your departments are agile. What also mean is how are you seeing, what are you hearing, what are you doing? Are these all in sync with the business, with the market? And if it is not, then yes, you're losing the business agility stint or the piece.
Very
This is
interesting comments there. And for me, this brings about the concept that agility is only as fast as the slowest moving part, whether that is your workforce, your management, or your clientele. So maybe that's something to consider as well. Siddharth has posted a new question. Measuring means transparency. What are your thoughts? And we have some initial comments already. Dr. G, Gautam, thank you. Measuring means accountability as well. I think it's a good first step on the road to accountability. Any other thoughts on this question from Siddharth?
Yeah, I would like to reflect on what I have experienced, and I was discussing this with William the other day, that, there are great points, actually, Siddharth, you mentioned, that why businesses were losing out, and these big enterprises, what's kind of, wrong with all of them. And some of the reflections, because I largely come from a large enterprise background, I actually once counted how many forums we go to actually approve one funding. And it was like 36 forums in an organization. So it's just day-to-day practical things which we need to kind of ensure that we become more agile in the process. Going to 36 forums for getting an approval, how agile is that? So it gives us also a perspective about some kind of discussion which is leading to the value stream and the maturity of value stream. So I would like to throw that question into this chat now, because I would like to consolidate our thoughts around how value stream maturity would be able to contribute to business agility. And do you feel or see similar challenges which I am referring to? Or maybe I have been into too many big initiatives. That's the reason why it takes 36 for us to get one investment approved.
Garima, I would like to reflect a bit. You ask, how agile is that, having like 36 signatures or whatnot? I would ask, how secure is that? It's like Fort Knox level of security. I would like to have this type of security. Imagine having like 2 or 3 signatures and then someone asks, hey, where did our money go? Poof, that was too fast. Oh gosh.
So yeah, I think we need to kind of brainstorm this a little bit, and with the context of value stream maturity. And I know that we have a lot of experts here, but I will turn around to Shantanu for this question, and then we can come back to Siddharth as well as.
Indeed, Garima. I think, you've pointed out a very valid blocker with almost all the grown-up startups, or maybe what we call enterprises, I'll say, that we start with the correct approach and we evolutionary scale up to such a space where there are so many internal channels created, which slows down the whole agility model. Now, these are meant for certain factors. So maybe, these are governing a lot of compliance, obligations, or maybe regulations, a lot of factors. But eventually, everything that we think of standardization these days is slowing down your agility. So now, if we kind of bring, processes in between, they are to be measured. How exactly is that process going to help me? If anything, from an agility mindset, if anything that slows down your whole process of having that core function in place correctly, that is to be seen in a different way, or that is to be fitted in a different way. So that's a very valid point, Garima, because I usually see, from the banking domain that I come up with, I've seen most of the banks. I know I'm discussing, in the topic a bit, but most of the banks I've seen, they have heavily invested into the RTB models, where they always want to be happy if the RTB, is always good. But CTB is something that gives them a good talking point on discussions. But now with all these advancements, and somehow the technology that we have in the market is helping them do that, they are actually making their systems agile. So that now they can slowly invest on the CTB part with much more confidence. So now RTP is just not the only thing banks worry about. I think Siddharth, can comment much more on this. But from where I see today, how banks are reacting in terms of an agility mindset with the technologies that they are getting to play with, the CTB is getting due attention that it needed for the past decade. So that's the point. I'll just pass on to Siddharth, if he has something to add on here.
I think the problem remains what it was since ages. And the problem is that IT and businesses are becoming more, the more closer they are, the better the business agility will be. The wider they are, the less business agility will be. And I was hearing one of the debates, for example, the safe architecture and framework that are introduced. If you see those, there are a lot of layers to it. And the nth person in that layer, which is the engineer, has a wider gap to reach out to the business folks. So the idea was, if you're bringing more gaps with these sort of frameworks, and nothing against the safe piece, there will be less business agility into it. So the only point is, there could be many components to it. Is you bring IT and business as close as possible, and you will see business agility happening automatically.
Yeah, thank you, Siddharth. And some last reflections from Gautam, and then we move on to the next question. Yeah.
So I'm going to add something here. We've been talking about business agility, and we've been talking about processes, value stream mapping, and all these various things. I think another very important variable to consider is the organizational culture. There are a lot of organizations that are very pathological, right? I mean, they have a very toxic culture, and therefore they're always power hungry and power oriented. Those kinds of organizations are going to resist. And then you have very bureaucratic organizations, which are process oriented. And that's where probably you can drive in and bring in more of the agile concepts. And then finally, you have the generative things. A lot of enterprises, as they are starting to evolve, probably have that toxic culture still. They have that pathological organization. So that could be a huge factor why agility is not being adopted at different levels.
I have a question, Gautam, sorry. What do you mean by toxic culture? Sorry,
so,
to interrupt.
Yeah. So Ron Westrom, he has three types of organizational culture. The first one is a pathological organization or a toxic culture, which means that everything is power driven. People are scared. There's no psychological safety. There's no trust. If messages are usually shot, right?
I got you.
That's toxic culture.
I got you where you're coming.
Yeah. And I think this is an excellent point, Gautam. I actually was reading a report, and this is a deflection from what we are discussing now. But I was also curious to understand that how we can enable business agility in a unionized ecosystem. And this is something which is a very crucial discussion to have when we look out and we see a lot of unionized ecosystems around. And it is a very difficult conversation to have in organizations, in mid-tier or even large enterprises, government organizations, where business agility is just difficult because of the nature and the structure, the maze they have built, right, around the whole organization capability. But that is something which we should actually focus in another topic. This is another topic for discussion. It's just food for thought. But Yeah, you want to add something before
No,
we
I'm
move
saying
forward?
that's a very loaded thing, and probably we can take it offline because I work with a lot of public sector and unionized places, especially like railways and utilities, and it's hard having them talk about having us come and talk about agility because at the minute you say that, we're moving their cheese, we're making them irrelevant.
Yes. So yes, I would like to have a discussion around it. Maybe it's a difficult conversation to start, but I guess we have to initiate this at some point in time. So I would invite for conversations pretty soon on this topic as well. But for now, I think we are good to have our last question. Define your North Star business agility with DevOps. And William, if you can push that question to the crowd chat, that would be great. And I would like to start this time with Sriram, because I see that, when he talks about a lot of dimensions where he has this team which he has built up from a DevOps context, I see a lot of great points coming up from his perspective. So Sriram, how do you define your North Star within the domain you operate in?
Okay, so for me, North Star is something like this, Garima, and especially which is very closer to this topic, right? First thing starts with the observability, right? And what can those observabilities help in predicting the, predicting uh, predictability of moving forward, right? So if I put it in that way, anything that we start observing has to help in bringing some kind of predictability to the future. That is what will help you to put in the spirit of continuous improvement, right? Uh, you can bring in agility to the business, right? But again, it has to yield results in terms of value to the business, right? That would start with whatever it takes for observing the bringing the kind of measurement and observability. So that is what would be the how I would start defining for the North Star. Any examples that I can take? Definitely it starts from the value that changes are being delivered, right? Ultimate aim is to bring value to the business, value to the customers, right? Any metric that actually narrows down to these two areas is what I think organizations have to adopt. And at least I see organizations tending towards these two focus areas for them to make them more agile.
Yeah, this is really great observability. And in the context of business agility, I turn this question to Shantanu, how how we would accomplish that. And obviously, I haven't seen any kind of tools in that dimension, at least now. So do you have any reflections for that?
So honestly, Garima, whenever I talk about any agility that we can bring into any setup that I've ever been a part of, the first thing and the first concern I always hear about is reliability. So to me, that's the coin that, okay, I can bring more agility to what exactly, you want to bring to this team or to the culture of development that we have got. Or maybe to what exactly we have been doing. Maybe that's not exactly a very good source for success, but it is something that since you're challenging, you must have got a better view of it. But this discussion of but is always there, and I get a lot of buts in any discussion. What if it does not work? Will I be safe? Will I be properly in the place where I have let you do something different to what I've been doing so far? So giving them the assurance that yes, wherever you are going to go from here is going to be just ahead of it. You're not going to go back. You're not going to lose, or lose where you were confident on standing. So giving a mindset of a reliable setup is something that everybody looks forward to. Now, since we're talking these two, so to me, it's kind of a very difficult match, as we have put it, as we have kind of kept the word agility, with DevOps. So it's a difficult match because DevOps is with that speed. It's very difficult with now I'll say it's kind of difficult with the speed of thought. So I'll say any tools that we speak of, any kind of adoption state that we speak of, it's very good to think, and DevOps can do it at a much faster pace than you think of it. So now whenever we think of change and whenever the business is seeing that this change is something which sounds promising, but still we have to vouch in the kind of backfalls that they may have. So making the systems more transparent is what Sriram has said, more, the observability component, I'll say. But reliability to me is the core. And whenever we talk of agility or any change, reliability will stay the core to me. I'll just add that point, Garima.
Okay, good. So I think we have something to think over when we are actually putting together the white paper. It is building up very interesting thought process. At least in my mind, I'm trying to craft this white paper now already. Siddharth, I would like to get your reflections. How do you see business agility with DevOps, and what is in for us? Like we DevOps leaders, or whatever we call ourselves, like champions or ambassadors, how do you think we can contribute to this business agility dimension?
I think if we start looking besides the IT team, there are other teams which exist. And if we can help them, it is easy to have conversations with IT folks, ops folks, have conversations with, let's say, HR, and help them out. That is a good kickstart point to have conversations.
Yeah, excellent,
Short and
Siddharth.
sweet.
And lastly, Gautam, from a leadership standpoint, how do you see what are the key skill set which are required for a leader? And it's just in the context of the North Star. If we think about how the future is building up for business agility, do you think the DevOps capability or DevOps skill set is something which would help business leaders to ensure this business agility from a top perspective? How do you see that discussion building up?
Yeah. First, I'd like to plus one to what Siddharth said. Having that business IT alignment is really critical, especially in this time. You don't want to have that us versus them mentality. It's all a consistent team that works towards business outcomes, right? So the way I look at it, business agility and DevOps are interconnected, right? Business agility is critical because the market is so volatile, customer behavior shifting, and we need to respond really quickly. So the mindset of having DevOps agility and lean experimentation really goes a long way for leaders. And a lot of them are actually embracing it, and they're starting to look at things. Almost every organization had to shift digital, so which means they have to dip their toe into cloud native practices, and they have to look into all those other software patterns. So it's starting to become a reality where we are bringing in business agility into the business rather than just in the technical realm. I think the focus has to be on business outcomes, what is valuable to the organization, how we can improve the path to production for the value within the organization, move from ideation all the way up to implementation. That's an important thing. Having quick feedback loops, experimenting, hypothesis-based experimenting is really important. And then observability, that's key. You cannot make emotional or gut decisions anymore. You have to make data-driven decisions, and you have to identify patterns. So data and observability is really key, and a lot of leaders are actually embracing it now. So it's very heartwarming to see that.
Excellent. And then I have to be respectful for your time. William, any last reflections you have from the crowd chat?
Yes, Garima, we had an amazing amount of input on the crowd chat this time. I think you have huge amount of material for your white paper. It started to trail off on the input near the end, so thank you for your huge amount of energy initially. I'd like to say thank you to Mark Peters, the crowd captain of Business Agility, with 36 votes today. Nice. So congratulations. Thank you for your inputs, and obviously good ones getting all of those votes.
Excellent. Thank you, William, for watching the chat. And thank you all for actually contributing to this discussion. It's an extremely informative, enlightening discussion which we had today. What will happen as next steps is that we will create a white paper around this topic. and you would be able to see the white paper before the others. So if you want to change anything or update anything, you would have an opportunity to do that. With that, I think this artifact and this conversation is being recorded, so it will live on our YouTube channel. I would invite you to share this with all your colleagues in your network. And lastly, I would invite you for our April theme, which is open source and DevOps. So we are having a lot of discussions around open source and DevOps. We will have a crowd chat around that. So if you want to participate in that, of course, you know where to go. And next week, we are bringing in Donna for value stream mapping fundamentals. So if you're interested to know about value stream mapping and how it actually ensures business agility, that's something to look forward for. Again, I would like to thank all of you, and we look forward for more collaboration and cooperation along this journey. And again, it's needless to say that Devops Summit is coming up November 8th and 9th. I hope to see you all there.
Thank you, everyone.
You will. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Enjoy.